So, welcome Phil Taggart, artist, journalist, Radio 1, DJ, author, podcaster, all-round top lad. Do you know what? That was as smooth as I ever done it. And you know, I'm quite proud of that because you are a man of smoothness. You know the airwaves better than anyone out there, and especially me. You're most welcome, Phil.
You've got high off my osmosis.
I'm telling you. You just walked in and there was just an aura and the steam just... Whoosh.
You just knew exactly what you were doing. Like your broadcast, went up by about 20%.
Well, there's
You're showing off.
As a 20% fog of invisibility. So good, people. So, Philly, I know you from, as I say, a long time back, but you were originally born in Derry.
Aye, it was Derry.
And then you moved to Omagh. Drumragh, is that right?
Drumragh, yes. You've done your research on this.
So this is your life. So Drumragh, right? So what was that like growing up in Drumragh, moving from Derry? What age were you then?
I mean, like the only reason I was born in Derry is because I was so impatient that I couldn't stay in the womb for longer than I needed to. Like I was about 2.5 months premature, and I've held that like level of impatience my whole life.
So you just wanted to run out there quick,
get straight out there, and get into it, and let's see what's happening in the world. Like,
Mama, throw me out into the world.
Right? Yeah, exactly. I was born with a briefcase and a cigar. Like I was like, right, let's go, let's do this.
It's Phil from Omagh. Let's do this all now. So in them early days, then. So did you go to like a local rural primary school, or did you go into Omagh for primary? You know, when you were growing up.
When I lived out in Drumragh, like I was sort of like reared on a farm next door to my house. So my parents were both young professionals. Like my dad worked for the housing executive, my ma worked in a solicitor's firm in the town, and I got looked after during the day up until, God, I don't know, 12 or 13, by the next door neighbour, which was a farm. So I grew up effectively on a farm, and then my mum's family were from a farm as well.
So did you get stuck in? Did you get into the bales of hay?
I got stuck into it, yeah.
Was there times the bales of hay, there was a company with you?
Yeah, no, like you were kind of allowed to like run about the land yourself, and
it's like a rural thing.
It was massively rural, and there's nothing really about, like, you know, there's lots of cows. It was a dairy farm, so you know, you knew what bits you weren't allowed to go to. You weren't allowed to go near the byre, and you weren't allowed to go into certain fields because there's bulls in it, and you weren't allowed to go anywhere near the, you know, all the shites pushed, because like what they would say, the slurry tank.
Before the slurry tank, tell the people like this is pre-slurry tank.
This is like it's like a little slurry silo, and like what they used to scare me into, like, never go near, because they would say, wee boy up the road fell into it and he died, and his dad came in after him and then he died too. And then there's me about 4 years old here and this going, Jesus, I'm not going anywhere near it. That
would even put you off going to the toilet yourself.
Exactly. That's why I have to stand up to go number 2 like these days. Like I'm not going anywhere near it.
You're still seeing the grids, no, just an illusion of the grids.
That's it.
For people out there, that's recycled slurry, which then goes in the grass, which then grows.
Yeah, exactly.
Silage.
It's massively important. Like, and you know, I spent a lot of time. I used to jump. You know, you'd get the silage in, you'd bale it, and then they'd put about 20 of them in a row, and that would be them. And it might, like, you know, on a particularly good year, you'd have a right few. And my favourite crack was me and my mate just leaping from them and playing wrestling on them, because they're fairly soft.
Oh, they're solid. They're solid too.
They're solid, but like, you know, there's a little give on it, and we would just do somersaults off things.
Did you ever feel like Hercules up against it? We can move this. Come on, brother. We can move this.
we can roll this into town and make a wee bit of money.
Walk back in the house with a big flat shoulder. What were you at, son?
And I mean, like, I had a great time growing up on that place, and you know,
you've seen the value of being rural, and you've seen the value of people looking after their land.
Aye.
Which is an important thing. I suppose people out there listening to you know you from a different place.
Aye.
So I suppose it's just to get into context where it was, you know.
Both sides as well. Like, you know, my mum's side, they're from Ederney in Fermanagh, and that's a very small village, and they grew up on a farm outside of it, and they were beef farmers and sheep farmers as well.
Well, tell me, that's just as a matter of interest. Was the Fermanagh farming, you know, like cows, were they harder than the Tyrone cows, or were they averaged out? They were well looked after. There wasn't much in between them.
The Tyrone ones were Frisians, so they were a lot softer, because they're just...
Were they cold? They weren't cold. Oh, that's the name. That's right, Frisian heifer.
the heifer's like a teenage cow, like, and then they become the big cow.
Well, it's just a teenage cow. Imagine being a teenage cow and all, trying to get a first date with another teenage cow out there in the yard. Like, have you seen sort of snugglings going on in the farmyard?
I just saw the one bull and he was going through them.
The bull's the king.
There wasn't too much. There wasn't too
People
much.
should
dating.
know out there what a bull is, and sort of passive terms is a very good looking person, isn't that right?
It's very much
and has
so.
Choice of many.
Yeah.
Choice of many. So it has.
Is there a person because the nickname Bull is somebody that's given to somebody who's quite a big stature in every village. Every village has a bull. It's like a Bull Taggart or a Bull Glasgow. Or is there a bull in Draperstown?
There actually is.
What's their name?
Kelly's.
Bull Kelly.
So where's the one in yours? What's the number one?
Well, I was up the Glenif Horseshoe there outside Bundoran a couple of weeks ago with my friend, and we were driving around and we went up the mountain, and there's only one house on the mountain, and it has a lot of Republican writing on the side of it. And when we go back down to Bundoran, I've never seen writing on a bungalow house before. And we got down back into Bundoran, and we got chatting to the guy who was the main sort of travel agent for Bundoran. He looks after everybody, and he came down and met us for a pint because we were tweeting about it, and I was like, what's the crack with that house up there? And he was like, have you ever seen Father Ted? You know Tom from Father Ted, who sits on the wall with his sawn up shotgun, just sort of giving evils to anybody that's going past. He was like, that's Bull Sheridan. He doesn't like anybody going up his mountain.
Stay off my land.
That was it. Like, yeah.
Well, and it's funny you say that there, because so I suppose getting a name like that, what you're saying to people out there that mightn't understand the concept of what we're talking about, that you might be ready for a fight.
Me, not
you, but the bull.
The bull would be.
Yeah. The bull's ready for the fight.
The bull's ready.
So when you were in primary school, then you moved on to Christian Brothers.
I went to the primary school, St. Columkill's School in Omagh, which was about 100 metres from my granny's house. It was behind the Sacred Heart Church.
So you were handy to get home for a wee snack and all.
Well, I mean, it's amazing I wasn't a fat child, because St. Columkill's School was right behind the chapel, and my granny's was the other side of the chapel. You go up there, get a feed of chips, and then you go home and get your dinner on top of that. It just turned out there was a lot of Gaelic football played in between to sort of burn it all off.
Well, there was plenty going on, and you were active. And was that a stage where you were sort of involved in the GAA in your young days?
My family on the Taggart side are big GAA heads. Like, a lot of them have managed the Omagh St. Dundas football team, and a lot of them play for the women's team, and they're all active members. And I played my first game of GAA football under 8 or something like that for Drumragh, because that's where I lived. And my Taggart side of my family found this out, and they drove out to my house a couple of weeks later, and they piled me in the back of the car and told me I was never playing for Drumragh again, and took me to Omagh St. Dundas training, and they said that I wasn't allowed to go back, and they drove me into training every Saturday.
Did you sell out the family going to an RGA club?
I didn't know. I didn't know any better. I didn't know any better. So they took me, and I played for Omagh St. Dundas then for years, and then I
but see when you were playing a match against your club that you wanted to join, for the world out there, for the GAA people out there to know that they took your heart away, taking you for that first club.
Do you know what? I wasn't old enough to really understand. Like, I didn't have too much of a bond for Drumragh. I kind of I built my bond with Omagh St. Dundas. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And a very successful club.
They did great there in All Ireland, and they've got great players like Conor Myler and Ronan O'Neill and people like that.
You still follow it in your local club?
Yeah, follow it here and there.
Because I've seen there where you were online, where you were out searching for tickets for the All Ireland, which Tyrone won, and congratulations on that.
Thanks very much. And, I didn't do anything like that. Thanks.
You're part of that county anyway. Which I'm not, and it was very hard there. But I give you all the hugs and congratulations in the world. But did you get a ticket?
No, I didn't. I didn't look very, very hard either. Because the last time that I watched the Tyrone in the All Ireland final was in 2018, and I was in a wee small island in Croatia. I was on holidays, and I was in a wee small apartment block, and I had to ask everybody in all of the 8 houses to not use the internet between 3 and 5 because I was trying to stream it.
How was the language barrier there? Was there a few people who didn't understand what you were saying?
Trying to explain GAA to like a German couple, a Dutch couple,
Speak
a Portugal.
To me now. So give us a wee briefing on how that worked.
You'd just be like walking up to them and be like going, internet, bad. 3 to 5 p.m, pointing at the watch. Gaelic football, basketball, soccer, rugby, big moment, final, please, no. I think it was something like that.
So it worked out.
Well, I mean, we got whooped by Dublin, so it didn't work out that well.
The German man was happy.
Yeah, if I'd have known that, I would have just went for a dip.
So going on to your secondary school, to the Christian Brothers.
Aye.
So when you went there, I suppose that's where you're at now in the world of creativity. Because I'm aware that you were young, starting Colenso Parade at 16 years of age. So in the secondary school, was there music there? Or how do you feel about now for schools in general and the music and creative delivery that's on them, at the minute? And back then when you were there?
We actually started playing in a band when we were probably about 14, and we were called the Hot Rocks at that time. And then we became...
I bet you walked around... I bet you just walked around Omagh. We're the Hot Rocks. Have you got a wee walk? Stand up there and show me a wee stance of a hot rock there. Come on, stand up.
It's a power stance. It's a power stance.
There's a leg go across the gap.
Yeah.
Oh, lethal.
A bent knee and one straight leg.
Had you a wee patch or a wee split?
I think, I still do.
Hot Rock. Just on ad break. Hot Rocks jeans. Phil Taggart. Where can they get them? Where are you going to get them?
You can get them in your nearest... the charity shop, I would say.
Elite charity shops. Get ready with the cash. But you're doing a good deed when you're getting the jeans as well. So go ahead, Paul.
But it was good. I was like, I think, you were encouraged to a certain degree if you were of a certain standard. Like if you were somebody who they liked having about, then you would get encouraged. But I don't know if I was particularly well liked by the teachers because I was just a bit of a yap,
No, did you like the crack? I
liked the crack, and I was very excitable, and sort of still am really, and wasn't able to root myself into study very well, or wasn't able to sort of sit still for too long. And
you know what? You're talking about me here, but keep going there. That's good.
I know. Neither of us have lost it.
You've done a bit of research on me. Sorry, go ahead.
Neither of us have lost it, but it would piss them off a bit. You'd be constantly in trouble, like
outside the door. Outside the door.
You'd be outside the door all the time. I remember when the band had just started, that the two boys, Melly and Mickey, walked past me 3 times in a day, and I was kicked out of 3 different classes, and they were just like,
"You should have just started rehearsing on the aisles."
Well, that was it. So when you're a young sort of lad and you want to play rock music or guitar music or whatever, I don't need a music teacher to stand behind me and tell me what to do, because at that age you want to be like Kurt Cobain, or you want to be like Zach De La Rocca from Rage Against the Machine or something. So, and
what kind of poses were you taking at that stage when you were that age?
I was just a bass player, so I couldn't sing or do anything else. So the boys were like, "You're the bass player," and I was like watching Flea videos and things like that, and I was like, "Going, this is actually pretty cool." I don't mind being the bass player.
You found a real cool player, and look, all over the world there's fantastic bass players, as you know, and they're very much needed in a band.
But the guitarists and the vocalists get all of the praise when you're a teenager, but as you grow older as a music fan, you realize that the drummers and the bass players are actually the rhythm what keeps it going. Like, it's impossible to have a dance floor without the bass and the drums.
The amount of people that you would have had on over the years, great musicians, and your what we'll get to in your later the work, the line of work that you get into, you would have met loads of musicians, and you'd have probably even, it would have been coming home even more so there in front of your eyes, I would imagine, all them sessions in Radio 1 and stuff. So when you and Omagh at that time, I suppose, what we should say to people out there, it's a rural town. And for people that don't know where you're from, Phil, and it's so was there any bands at that time that were floating around that you could have looked upon or looked to, or?
Yeah, there's a couple. The thing is, there was like Omagh, for as big as it is, like it's about 20,000. Like, there's about 20,000 people in the sort of catchment area of Omagh, maybe a little bit more now. Yeah. But we had a lot of bands. Like there was a website that was set up called omahrocks.tk.
Stole your first band name.
And it used to have all of the bands in the area on it. Yeah, and there was about 25. There was absolutely tons. Well, I started putting on band nights. I put my first band night on when I was 15.
And where did you set it up at?
I did it in the top of the town in Omagh, because there was band nights that were happening beforehand. Keel Cathers and the boys and a couple other lads put on a gig in the INF, and everybody got into it except me, because I was like, they were letting people in underage. Like, I mean, they probably shouldn't have been, but like, I was too young.
They were letting, for good people out there, they were letting people in with an adult, right? So you hadn't got an adult that night, just
no, I hadn't got an adult like that night, and I also looked like I was about 9. So I decided I was I went home spurned, so I decided to start a band night. Then 2 weeks later, and I got my band and 3 other bands to play, and we sold the whole thing out. We sold 200 tickets on the door. Brilliant. and it went on like that for about maybe 18 months, and the music scene then was huge, and like, we were charging like a $5 in back when we were 15, which would have been like 2002, like, and all the bands were getting well paid, and they were able to go and get rehearsal rooms or go and like pay for demos. What do you think was going on then that sort of energized that all? Because there was other areas that was being energized, and at the same time around Uri. I think it was popular culture. Like, I mean, it being in a band was mainstream then, and it's not mainstream anymore. Yeah, like, you're coming off the back of Britpop being the biggest thing that's ever happened to your generation, guitar music. But we were kind of too young for Britpop, sort of. We were like the sort of the age of the Strokes and White Stripes and,
cool
and Libertines. They were a bit cooler.
Well, they were cool bands for your generation. But I suppose the other people look back to our generation.
But it was really mainstream. It was really popular, and that was what kids wanted to listen to. It's weird now because like Omagh is a massive music town for anybody who doesn't know it. And like, there's incredible musicians like Artie McGlynn and the Lost Brothers and Jerome McGlynn and tons of other people that have come from there. And now when I see the ones that are maybe about 17, 18 coming through, they're into folk music and they're into traditional music. The town just goes in cycles, and cycles are only very short as well when it comes to like capturing lightning in a bottle before everybody goes off to university in different towns or places.
Because it just explodes the sparks all over the place. It's controlled, as you say, at that time. Everything, the people are there, and then they move, they marry, they get jobs, they push your way out, and
it's a nuclear bomb. Like that's it in the middle when you're 16, 17, 18.
That's a flame of hope for everyone, isn't it?
And then it just spreads out onto the rest of the world.
And I suppose the good thing about that, Phil, is that energy has been taken away somewhere else. Someone will still keep that linear line going, even though that scene, as you said, has switched around. Now, what about the likes of, say, young people now, that maybe, you just said it earlier on there, it's something I just heard you say about being young and not being let in. Because the truth be told now, the access young people have to music now is from, they're basically maybe able to walk, there's music, and they're able to do certain things on phones, and it'll get more so. Should there be more opportunity for young people to go to gigs? And obviously there's a big control thing and all that there, but do you think that's needed? Because you're a long time in the music industry, to get fans back, get that feeling you said there back out and get it back into Omagh and back into towns, and how do you think that should look?
There's a difference between seeing something on YouTube or seeing something on TV and seeing something for yourself in real life, because like when you're watching a music video that's maybe had tens of thousands of pounds put into it, it feels massively unachievable. But when you're standing in St. Joseph's Hall or the GA Hall or the INF or whatever in Omagh, and there's somebody playing within a metre of you, and you can see it being done, then it becomes achievable, because you're like, oh, well, if that guy can do it, then I can do it as well. And
but you have to see it, don't you?
You have to see it. You have to see it up close, and it doesn't work the same on Zoom, and it doesn't work the same on Twitch, or it doesn't work the same on YouTube. Like you do, the only way to be really infected by and nobody wants to be infected by anything these days, do they?
Yeah. But infected with music and creativity.
Yes, but that's it. And you need to see it in front of you, and you need to be able to feel the vibrations in your chest of the drum.
Because see that moment, because I've talked to lots of people, and everybody's is different. It could be a festival, it could be in a wee bar, it could be in Ulster Hall, it could be, not the Ulster Hall, more so from my era. And because I remember seeing Ozzy in the Macefield Leisure Centre, and so there was not even venues galore to have them. But you just mentioned there in Omagh 3 to 4 places that would and did have the energy of music. But I think I suppose now it's getting people back out into town centres and getting people back into the towns. And I know from here there's bars closed. It's almost like in Omagh.
I think Omagh's going through. A friend of mine, Mickey, who played in the band with me, he referred to Omagh as the best way I've ever heard it explained the other day, and he called it the home of the beatnik culture. he said it's the home of the beatnik culture. It's like where people are well like they know their music, they're well read, and they want to stay in the town.
And they want to wear the shirt.
Yeah, and they want to wear the shirt.
But that's okay too, isn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. But like I can see that the generation coming up behind me aren't as open to moving away because there's more opportunities. Like Omagh, in a weird way, is doing a lot better than a lot of other towns its size. Like the shop fronts aren't shutting down. The bars are still open.
Do you feel industry around it has started to expand out? Because this town here is very much entrepreneurial too.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a lot of really good businesses, and you're seeing the town expand a bit. I know it's nothing like you, but for us, it's a small part.
But that's what it has to be.
A bit bigger. You know what I mean? And intercultural as well. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's definitely a new generational thing. From the last maybe 20 years, I've been seeing that, and people of all walks are living and breathing and taking part in the area, and I think it's good for rural towns.
Yeah, massively. I mean, like there's been a lot of immigration into Omagh of the last 20 years.
Yeah.
A lot of African families, a lot of Polish families coming in and changing Omagh into a different town for the better.
Yeah,
do you know? I can
because you're well
see,
travelled. You could see that. You lived a long time in London. So and for you to be saying that's a really positive thing about your hometown. And for you yourself, you're living back in Omagh, is that right?
I'm back in Belfast.
Back in
now.
Belfast, but you were in Omagh for a while, were you?
I was just I'm back up and down to Omagh now the same way normally I would have been nearly as a student. Do you know what I mean?
To get the feeds, no.
I couldn't get the feed. Say, wave to me ma, pet the dog in the head, and head back up the road again.
Because mommy will always look after you. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
For people out there, there's one place you can go and it's your mommy and get sorted out.
Exactly.
And, is there any wee special tray bakes made for you, or sandwiches, or?
There's never not a tray bake in the ma's house. Like.
Oh, deadly. Well, then I must visit you someday.
That's it. You get the wet of a tea bag around my house.
Deadly. A well-rung tea bag, people should know out there. Well used, well supped, and well looked after. Teddy tea folk, man. So, Phil, at 17, for people out there, I'll give a small insight. There was a magazine called Return of Ulster.
Yeah.
Ran by Johnny Tiernan. And it was back in the day, and you at 17 were one of the writers in it, I suppose. And at that time, for me, it was deadly because you were saying about bands, or you were hearing about bands all over the place, and you were hearing about maybe gig places coming up that weren't normally gigs, and obscure gigs. That sort of started that all, and you dealt with dance music. It was everything. What was that like for you at that time, being, I suppose, at the helm of something like that had, I think it was 10 years, isn't that right? Or how long did it go? I'm not...
Of Alternative Ulster? Alternative probably was about 10 years.
10 years, I think, wasn't it?
It was something like that, yeah. I mean, like they did really well, and it was a great magazine, and I think it did something that I was always screaming about in media in Northern Ireland at the time, is the best way to make, same as you, small but massive, right? Is the best way to make a local artist be bigger is by putting them in the same place as an interview with I don't know, James Murphy from LCD Sound System, or like an interview with just like putting them and giving them the same gravitas, the same space,
and you've seen
as
it
all
both
the rest
ways.
of it. Because like I mean, if it can work sometimes to your detriment when you just have a magazine or a show that's just all about locals. Sometimes, because sometimes people go into it with a mind frame of going, this is just local, which is not the right mind frame to be going into it. It should be like, this is where you're from, this is what the sound of where you're from is about.
But you're saying there,
but sometimes having that like gravitas make bolsters it a bit.
That mix of taking in, because obviously over the years, you guys working on it and Johnny and all, there was the odd nugget of bands come through that all of a sudden went like that, and they were in with the local bands, but they weren't local as such. They were on the way up.
Yeah, like
in the industry.
The big bands that like that I see, I didn't like, you know, I did bits and pieces for AU here and there, like, but I was definitely not one of the big cogs in the machine. I kind of I rolled in, did a couple of CD reviews and a wee bit here and there.
Yeah, but it was good. That was you starting off, and
that was me starting off. Yeah, I was only doing bits and pieces, and like.
But how did you find that then? That sort of, just for people out there.
Just like I don't have too much fear in asking for stuff. I tend to like throw myself into it and then try and figure out how to drive it while I'm on the road, and instead of like trying to figure out what it is,
automatic
beforehand.
mode you call it.
But I think that's the hardest place to start is by actually starting, because you can overthink. You can sit in your room, or you can sit like daydreaming as you walk to school or walk to work or just walk around the block or whatever. But the hardest bit is to actually just send the first message out going, here, can I do some work for you? Can I do this? And you know, you're not going to get paid for the first couple of things you do, or the first couple of years, but like you have to go and earn your stripes. And I'm not saying it's a right thing that you don't get paid, but it's just.
But it's the way it had to work.
Yeah, it's the way it had to work now. But like, I mean, you know, it would be good if interns could get paid, especially in London and places like that.
Yeah,
but like on a more local level, you do just have to come and show it as a bit of a vocation and learn, because
and appear, and keep appearing.
Exactly. Like you miss every shot that you don't take. Like so you have to be there.
Well, you mentioned there, Phil, about the BBC there, about, you know, like learning, and you on trainees. You mentioned there about, you know, like going on apprenticeships and things like that. So you were won a BBC skill set. Was that like an apprenticeship thing back in the day? Was that your first entry into the BBC, coming from, were you at uni at the time?
It kind of was. Like I went to university in Coleraine, and I was studying media studies up there. And for the dissertation, you could split it in two. Instead of having to write 10,000 words, you could write 5,000 words and do a radio documentary. And I was just like going, I mean, first up, I'd never done a radio documentary. I'd never even held a microphone to do an interview before in my life. So I was just like, I'm not doing 10,000 words for that. I'll figure out how to do a radio documentary. That'll be way easier.
And I'll talk 20,000 words in that radio documentary.
Exactly. And then have to transcribe it. I did like a dissertation. When would this have been? This had been like 2006 or 2007. And it was, the written piece was the representation of women in the music media, and it was about looking at Mojo and NME and Q and the adjectives that they used to describe women in their magazines at the time. So that would have been like Lily Allen and Amy Winehouse and Laura Marling and MIA and people like that.
So were you doing that there in a sense that for people to see how it was written then, or was it right the way it was written? Or what was your kind of thinking doing the piece?
I thought that women were, there was a certain amount of adjectives that were used to describe women that were only used to describe women and not men. So like it would be like feisty or bubbly, or you know, like stuff that you would never ever hear a guy. So I was just like trying to take all of the adjectives out and see whether it all matched up, and did a graph and all sorts of shit. Like
1974, look, the words spiritualized was said 15 times on Radio 1. Welcome to Radio 1. No, and so, but look, if you look, I suppose now where things are changing, you probably have brought something up way back then. It's been brought up now in a different way. You know what I mean?
I don't think anybody read it, like apart from the teacher that did it.
After this podcast, everybody will be searching for it. You know what I mean?
But there was the documentary I did was about women and positive, like women in the Northern Irish music scene. So I went and did like a piece on Donna Legg and a couple of other people, and put the documentary together, and it won this like award. But I had finished university by that stage, and they had phoned me to ask me to come to the thing in Blackstaff Studios in Belfast at the BBC, and I said no. I was like, I'm done with uni, like I don't want to travel up a road for that. And they said, no, you have to go. And I was like, I don't have to do anything. I don't have to do anything. I'm sorry, but I'm done here. And then they phoned me back, and they were like, you've won, and there's like a prize of like a couple £100, but you have to spend it on media stuff. So I bought decks. I bought DJ decks for it. I was like, it is a media.
You worked it well. It was creative. You know what I mean? No, I am totally with you. If I had been on that board at the BBC giving you that £200, young Philly, I would have been well happy with that.
Yeah, exactly. It was, yeah. Well, I ended up DJing, so like, I mean, it worked out. Like,
so, and look, it was your inroads then, I suppose, in a way, to what became and still is a massive love to you, which was radio presenting, and you're really successful at it. Fair play to you. Before we go to that, you worked and you set up Stroll FM in Omagh. Was that just to tell people out there what that was? And because I suppose people won't know, they might just think, oh, is it still there, or what's the crack?
Stroll FM is a community station. It was set up by two men who they set it up, and they kind of were looking for volunteers. So I was there, you know, when they were having the conversations on how to set it up, but I was very much one of the young guys sitting in the background just suggesting things rather than doing any of the heavy lifting. I was like, do we need Uncle Hugo on here?
What about Bull McGee, or whatever you call him?
Yeah, exactly. Get Bull Sheridan up there.
Right there now, we're going to play a right good old country song. And you better stand up in the kitchen and dance, or I'm coming to get you. Yeehaw!
So it sounds like you've been listening to the shows. You've been listening to the station.
Oh man, I love it.
But I ended up like doing a show on it, and it was my first ever show, and I got thrown off the station straight away.
Did you curse? No,
I did.
Did you? What flippity did you say? You know, beep.
I'll beep it out. But Morrissey was playing in Omagh Leisure Centre that weekend.
I remember that.
And a friend of mine, Brian, I had invited on the show because I was a bit nervous by myself, so I just had him there if I needed to chat to him. And Brian said, Jesus, Morrissey's playing in Omagh on Friday night. Maybe I could support him. And I said, Brian, the only way you could support him is if you beeped, if you beeping bent over and let him sit in your back.
Well, for people out there, that's four beeps. It's a bit like a fucking Buddy Holly song. That
it was like a scat. It was like a scat.
Give me that wee rap again. There was a beep and a bop and a beep.
The beep bop bop and a whoop. But that was the end of me on Stroll FM. So I was.
You were sacked, basically.
I was sacked straight away. But they first show down. I didn't tell the BBC about that when I was going for a job. Like,
funny you say BBC. In 2010, you sat in for Riggsy.
Yeah, I suppose it was, but geez, that how long ago it was now?
There you go. And so, because I remember, like, I know you done was it, I don't know what you call them,
inserts.
You were a promoter from New York.
Oh yeah,
Frankie. I'm Frankie. You want to book me, man? You know, I thought it was deadly. Right. I suppose for them guys down there was, oh my god, what's he on? What's happening?
It was late night. That was BBC introducing, because like Northern Ireland at that time was blessed enough to have two shows based around getting music out there, like from local bands. It's only got one now, but the late night one was the Radio 1 opt out. So sometimes it's on Radio 1, sometimes it's just on Radio 1 Northern Ireland. And we used to just, because it was 12 to 2 a.m, we were just like, we played with it so much and just like created characters and worlds and we're kind of just like, I don't know how we got away with it. You'd never get away with it now.
I thought it was class. I thought what you were doing was brilliant, and it sort of added it was a great bit of crack, and I always wanted to know how Frankie and what was coming up and what gigs was happening. The way you were saying down gigs downtown and big town, all towns, you know. Brilliant. And you should bring that character back.
Right.
Maybe in your podcast.
It was a fake band manager called Frankie Sinclair, and he had his assistant, which was called Angelo Lansbury, and they went out to seek the best advice that they could get from people in the music industry in Northern Ireland, and then would do gig listings for anybody who missed out on that incredibly quality moment of radio history.
So all you people out there, check the iPlayer. You might never find it. You know, MySpace is hidden away somewhere in some big some big well-fed fucking computer. I have it, Phil. I have it in my hard drive.
I would love to hear it.
Oh, that's brilliant. So
forgot all about that.
There you go. So when you were in there, ATL, so that was your sort of the start of your progression to get into radio and then get the opportunity to go to London. But how long were you were around Radio Ulster a wee while more than any? You sort of tell the people out there, I suppose, for anyone listening, just for, I suppose, for the young people listening. So earlier on, you spoke about your apprenticeship, and then Stroll FM, if the FM was a bad word, two bad words, it would go something me. Just Stroll.
That's what I said after me. That's what I got said after I said it.
You can stick your FM. I picked that up in your third aid here. We should say it. At the end, we're going to do a run of courses just to get them off our chest, So then your timeline and really ATL. So for people out there, ATL was a show based, first originator of it was Mike Edgar back in the day, and was a great advocate for new music at the time, same way Dave Fanning would have done for down south to FM. So tell the people then, Phil, what it was like for you then going in there, and how did you get that leap over on the boat?
I mean, Across the Line's got like really rich heritage. I think it's one of the oldest, if not the oldest, still running new music show on the BBC.
Yeah,
it started the year I was born, back in like 86.
There you go.
And I remember doing a show with Mike Edgar, who started it very much at the beginning. But it was one of those shows where I started working on very early into my career.
Yeah.
I was on a apprenticeship at basically it was a Steps to Work scheme from the Dole. That got me into the BBC, and I did 3 months, studying journalism and studying editing and stuff like that. And then after that 3 months, they put you on an attachment somewhere, and you can pick wherever you go, because they've got like UTV, they've got BBC, and I was so sick of being skint at this stage, because I was playing in bands and stuff, and it's not pretty lucrative,
Yellow Pack digestive biscuits, not even McVitie's, the kings of digestive biscuits.
That's it.
Some obscure Mickey Riley's digestive. They're only 14p, Folly.
Digestive biscuits? What are you, the king of Russia or something like? We were eating balled up sweat. That's all we could afford.
You were wrenching drying cloths just to keep dehydrated. I get you, lad. I get you.
We were doing that, and I had heard that in UTV page, what was it, 30 quid a week to do it. So I was like going, do you know what, I'll do that. And it turned out, I was like, they pay you an extra 15 quid in the BBC, but I was just like, no, I'm not going to go there. I'd rather work on the new music stuff, because I enjoy it a lot. So I ended up going there, and they kind of put you to work, and they make you do everything, and they're brilliant, and like lots of people go in there and don't do anything, and don't get the experience out of it. But if you go in there and you're willing to work, and you're willing to put in the time and the hours, then they'll repay you by training you up.
And that's right across the industry, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I suppose to let people know, because there's always that moment, you want something, you want it now. I want it all, as the great Freddie Mercury said. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And instantly, and everybody seems to want things instantly now, Phil. I don't know if you feel that.
Definitely is. Yeah.
So it's an instant world. So how was that experience then? And had you any sort of people that, because I would imagine, fair play to you, I would imagine going on to, because we grew up with countrymen.
Yeah.
Right? And all of a sudden you're in among, you see things, and there's a channel that your parents have watched, your parent have watched, your granny's watched, and the old man's probably watched, and all these people. And all of a sudden you're inside this machine as such. So how was that for you? Was it nerve-wracking at the start? You know what I mean?
I wasn't particularly nerve-wracked at that stage. Not until I started doing a show. That's when the nerves really kicked in. Yeah. I just felt that I had ideas that I wanted to tell people, and they would listen to the ideas, and sometimes they would be like, "Oh, nah, not admission," or sometimes they'd be like, "Go and do it."
Yeah.
If you're going to go in and start working somewhere, the easier you can make that person's life, the more likely you are to stick around and get a job and get trained up.
Yeah.
So you have to make their life easier and bring a fresh perspective to it as well. Yeah. And what helped me was I was 23 or 22 when I was going in, and I was younger than the rest of them, and I was out at gigs. I was literally at gigs 4 or 5 nights a week. Yeah. And so they needed that, they weren't.
That was part of their remit. And I suppose it's well and good now with the whole uploader and all, but back then it was good to see the bands, and then
you only know if they're you can polish whatever in a studio, but when you see somebody live, whether they're actually
float, what you're describing there. But people should know there what Phil described there. It floats in water.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not Jesus. But having been able to go out, I offered them an added value, and that added value was being out at gigs the whole time.
Yeah.
So when
you become that face, just for people out there to know that you become a face, don't you? Because you're a well-known face, you know, in the whole
same way
industry.
that your very own Gemma Bradley here, who's now the head, the presenter of Across the Line and BBC Introducing throughout the whole of the UK.
There you go.
Is very much the same,
Yeah.
and was very much
a country girl too.
Yeah, she's from here.
Yeah.
And she was coming through and was well known in the music scene before she got her job, and it was the same with me, and it was a very sort of similar come up in different ways. Both played in bands and things like that. And now she is literally the most important voice in terms of grassroots new music in the UK.
That's the way.
And she's from here.
She's just across the road.
I know.
And she sat in that chair too.
Aye.
And we had a blender too. We had a bit of an extent. So
I like that word, a blender.
well, it's between banter and lanter, isn't it?
I thought it was blather and dander.
Well, a blather is a blather, as you know. For people out there that don't know what a blather is, describe what a blather is in a country rural.
A blather is stopping to talk about absolutely nothing for 5 minutes and then walking on straight afterwards, having had no idea which either of yous were on about.
Aye. So if you're out there blathering away, because bars will be full of blathers.
Yeah, aye.
Bars and for mitzvahs and chapels and churches and there's blathers always. It's basically a gathering of people.
Yeah.
And they all speak at the one time.
Aye. And you don't really know what's going on.
No, a flock of swallows coming into over the Sperrins. So you then went, I suppose, you went over to Radio 1 and Alice Levine and you done a show, I think it started around 2:13 or something like that. So you came, I suppose, from Omagh through the ranks, and you all of a sudden you're in London and among, I suppose, there's a big difference, I suppose you can tell people out there, than coming from Radio Ulster and the setup to this major organisation that has all these different things going on and all these people maybe that you looked up to at the time, DJs and different presenters. So do you want to tell us a wee bit about that? Because you and Al seem to get on. You've done a TV shows and all, seen together and all. So how did that all come about? Or
it was weird. Like I had like done a couple of stand-in shows on Across the Line and in Radio Ulster. I've done a couple of stand-in shows on the late night Radio 1 show for BBC Introducing in Northern Ireland, and they kind of had taken an interest in some of the stuff that I was doing, and they'd asked me to go and send a demo to them. So I spent, I don't know, about 2 weeks putting together a demo. I did the same show nightly over and over and over and over and over again until it was good, and then edited the best bits of the 2 weeks out. Yeah.
For people out there, just what standard does it need to be then to get on radio? You know,
I mean, like if you're playing in a band, it's always really useful to try and go on YouTube and find what your favorite band sounded like on their first demos. So
because I heard you in your podcast, and you always bring the people back.
Yeah,
I can't remember who you had a really big star on recently. From America, and you were on about, you played his demo. Aye. And I was real interested in listening.
But the demo was important.
Who was it again? Who was it you were talking to?
I've had about 60 or 70 on.
But this is recent. This is one of the recent ones. But well, whatever. Anyway, you were bringing them back to their demo where you were coming from.
But I think that demos are really important. Like it's the first time that somebody that you want to hear it will hear it.
Yeah.
So I think the mind frame for me generally is like, I get excited about something and want to share it with somebody straight away, which is the exact wrong thing to do. There's a sweet spot between sitting on it and giving it out straight away. Yeah. And you need to find what that is out. You don't want to sit in a demo for too long, otherwise you lose the magic of it.
Yeah.
And it becomes a bit cold. So I did this 2 weeks, and I sent it over to Radio 1, and I said that I did it in half an hour on my lunch break. I didn't at all. Like I did it in 2 weeks. But I think I just lied to them. And they...
It took 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly. That was it. And they liked it, and then they got me over to do Saturday afternoon, which was Hugh Stevens' slot, I think at the time. It was 1 p.m.
And like what people should know is with Hugh Stevens, you're just talking about Gemma. He used to present the Radio 1.
Gemma took over his show. And he was the godfather of new music, and now Gemma from this parish has taken it over.
So we had a Welsh godfather, and now we've got an Irish rural godfather.
A rural godfather, yeah, exactly.
Godmother, maybe. God,
that's it.
What way would you say it now in the world we live in?
It's the queen, the king, the everything.
Everything, and all the bits in between.
But yeah, yeah, and fair play. I mean, Jam is representing, and it will only grow stronger and be better for everybody around here. And yeah, I just got onto Radio 1, and I was very lucky to get there. But I'd put the work in. I was doing fake radio shows for about a year and a half every day after I finished school that nobody ever heard.
There you go.
And it was.
Have you any recordings of them?
Look, I'm sure there's stuff floating about, but the way I figured it
Can
is,
you give us a wee burst come on there? Tell us, had you a different voice? You know, I'm Phil.
So
give us a wee blinge of what you felt it might have been then.
Oh, no, I wouldn't even know how to do it now, because like when I was starting out, it was very hello everybody and welcome to Across the Line. You know, you're not speaking normal.
But you always keep your own accent.
Thank you.
No, you do.
Like a lot of people,
because you don't come in. Hi, it's Phil here. You know, welcome.
Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's Paddy Glasgow FM here at Drapestown. Small but massive.
Yeah, small but massive, Phil. How are you keeping over the other side? I was out this morning doing a bit of jogging. What about you, Phil?
Love it. Love a bit of jogging.
Could I just say your teeth are so shiny this morning? Were you eating the new toothpaste that's sponsoring us in minutes? Be cleaner, be shinier. Just be Phil.
You sound like about 2 radio stations from Northern Ireland that I don't want to repeat, but I'll tell you off air. I'm like going, God, you might have a future there.
Oh, yeah, Paul, we'll stay where we are. So in 2013, you were the face of the Radio 1 Big Weekend. What we should say, that was the year of the City of Culture.
Aye.
And it was massive, wasn't it? And hopefully when I throw over to you of who was playing, you'll remember, because I've thrown other people that have been there and they can't remember anything. And but you were the one that with outtakes, talking to the people and all that there. How did that feel for you, being only living up the road? Was that
That's interesting though, because like, you know, Bruno Mars headlined it. I remember that. And I remember Vampire Weekend playing it, and there was a good few. Macklemore had a big set at it too. But the weird thing about it was that I was brought up to sort of, you know, this is the boy from Northern Ireland. We're here in Northern Ireland, so he'll do Radio 1 daytime, Radio 1 nighttime, BBC Northern Ireland, BBC 3. And do all that. I saw 2 acts the whole time that I was there, because I was too busy chatting about being there. Everybody's like going, what have you seen? And I was like going, nothing. I've been ferried from one thing to the other here. My feet didn't touch the ground. I didn't know what was going on. Like,
do you think it would be better just letting you loose and just wandering around and being that style? Because you'd be good at that. You know, just wandering around people and having a chat. And
probably, yeah. I was very nervous doing a lot of it, and you know, like, definitely thrown into the belly of the beast.
Was that a big belly coming? Was that your first big, you know, I know you've been at our festival since that in England and presenting on all different things, but was it a big thing, you know, for you?
Felt like a bit of expectation, and and I was very new at it all, and was very nervous about a few things, and like some things went really well, some things didn't go very well either, and that's just life, you know.
Is that because of the person at the other side you may be interviewing, or is it just...
I just think that it was maybe a little bit burnt out just by everything that was going on. It was it was like quite emotional on top of it. Like it's the closest I'll ever come to playing at a cup final, you know. Like people asking you for tickets like days beforehand, and you're trying to figure out what your work's going to be and what you're doing like that, and I think like,
and the more people probably talking to you, the more it was going around in your head, thinking, oh my God, this is going to be huge, because it was huge, wasn't it? Because the excitement. And the whole, you know, the whole city, and I suppose about the whole celebration and all the big events that was happening. But the Radio 1 one was a big one, and I think there was the wheels of steel were put behind it.
Well, the whole idea behind Big Weekend is that they go to places that Radio 1 doesn't naturally reach quite well. So they, you know, they've done places in Scotland, they've done places in Wales, they've done places in Northern Ireland. But guess what, Paddy? We're due.
Are we due?
2013.
Could you tell by my belly I'm due?
You're due.
I seen you sitting there like out there. People won't know that when they see the video. You're sitting there thinking, is he rubbing something? And I think you've impregnated me too.
I think so. And, I think that's me trying to give up the smoking weight. I think.
So is it?
I think we're due. I think we're due a big weekend. I
where
think
do
we're
you
due
think?
one.
For a man like you, on I suppose you can't put you in the spot, but is it going to be in a city or a big town, or does it always have to be in a city?
I don't know. I've got no. I have no way into any of those meetings. But if I was, because like Derry have had Big Weekend, and then there was a road show in Derry probably about 10 years before that as well. The Calamari and all those ones were at, because I remember I was grounded and I wasn't allowed to go to it.
No way.
But I think we're due, and whether it's Belfast, whether it's the North Coast, imagine like Portrush has put on a lot of big shows back in the day.
Yeah, and I suppose the background would be pretty cool too.
You could imagine Portrush on the beach.
They could come to Eagles Rock too, couldn't they?
Eagles Rock, but
Eagles Rock, they could come there, Phil. We should tell them to come there.
Paddy, do you remember? Do you remember the? You won't remember this at all because like you were flat out. But I said to you in the last Glasgowbury, and I didn't withhold my word on it because I was just like, I have no idea what I would do. I was just saying, if you haven't put on another Glasgowbury in 10 years, I'm going to climb up the mountain and do it myself. And then
well,
the 10 years came round, and I remember speaking to my ex at the time, and we were having a big conversation. I was like going, Jesus, I did say that, like, and I'm a man. I'm generally a man of my word, but I feel like I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'd bankrupt everybody, not even myself. But I wouldn't have a baldy, so I was just like going, this is one of those times that I think that Paddy wouldn't even be too worried if I broke my word on this.
You're 100%. You're 100%, Fred. So you then in 2018 in Radio 1, your own show, Chillfest. So that was all because I suppose you should say a wee bit here. Before that, your Chillfest, so you've always been out DJing. Your love of DJing started at a very young age too.
Aye.
Because we've talked to rock and roll, but so for their love of being a presenter and love of out playing in front of people, do you want to tell a wee bit about your love of dance music? And because that's where you've got to a Chillfest. So because I know I read somewhere about, that you did DJ up in Omagh, your first sort of run. And
I cover all sorts of music. Like I don't have a particular type of music that I like. I mean, from today I was listening to Janis Joplin, Mercedes Benz.
Yeah.
First thing
Won't
up.
you buy me a Mercedes Benz?
My friends all have Porsches. I must make amends.
Oh, love it, lad. Love it. Great song.
I was listening to that, and I was listening.
Funny, the other day I was just listening to boom, 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 down, just out of the blue. We're back to the 50s, a tune and a half. So sorry. So go ahead.
I like everything. Like, I mean, I do a show in Radio Ulster at the minute, which is all about dance music. And when I go out and I DJ, I like to play various different. I like to play as much as eclectic as I possibly can. But generally, where you're playing, it's a Friday or Saturday, and it does tend to be a bit more dance music. But I do try and keep it as varied as I possibly can, because I like folk music. I like dance music. I like rock music. I like hip hop.
Everything.
I just like everything.
Yeah. But a good tune's a good tune, isn't it?
It doesn't matter where it comes from.
And that's the thing about it.
As long as it hits you.
Hits you and just flattens you. It doesn't need to flatten you, just hit you a bit, you know what I mean? Don't blow you over like a hurricane. Hit me like a hurricane.
Just a light judo chop.
A nice wee Quango Tango. That's a new form of special.
That's Draper Sound Kung Fu.
Quango Tango. Help me defend myself, young Phil. So, and when you're saying that there, so you've played a lot of big festivals and different things, DJing and being a presenter and stuff. What was them experiences like for you too? Like when because you lived in London for a good few years. And was it all, I should ask us, in the world you lived in, was it all about thinking in your head, I have to go out tonight because there's somebody I need to meet and I have to be there, and the next night and rolls on, it's Wednesday, rolls on, rolling.
Yeah, it kind of is.
There's like a raw head moment coming.
It is a little bit like that, and like you think back about those times, and there's very rare a moment that you were ever actually in the moment.
Yeah,
it's a very, very stressful environment, because you're kind of like taught by the people there at Radio 1 that you've got to have a brand and you've got to have a social media thing, and you've got to be out DJing, you've got to be doing this, and you've got to be doing TV, and you've got to do this, and you've got to
got to swipe the lips.
But it's difficult. Like, I mean, because like,
but you did in a way on your own way, build a brand your way.
But I was doing it my way, and then so there would be certain expectations that you would have to sort of keep up with, and I don't know. I'm just very interested in just doing stuff that I'm interested in and not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I just like
the word. The people should know it's called defiance. But it's a good word in a sense sometimes, and because you're standing up basically for your own principles and what kind of a show you want the good listeners to listen to. What kind of bands or artists or DJs you want to bring on, and what kind of image you want your show to have. And you've got loads of people that listen to your show. So obviously, by being and doing what you had. it worked okay.
Yeah, but I think there's a certain level of defiance that is acceptable, and there's a certain level of defiance that's definitely
am I being diplomatic here on the truth? But look, so you're right. So, and I know what you mean there. So what you're saying, the cardboard cutout. I'm on the Studio A.
Yeah.
Phil, Studio B, pads. And I'm cardboard cutout, and I've got all the same crack, and I'm social media, and when I've just played a tune, and I'm all these things. Is that what they expected you to become? Or when you were out and about, is there sort of a way of, I have to behave this way because I work or I'm doing this? You know the way companies are now. And
no, the BBC have always been like giving me a lot of freedom when I was at Radio 1.
Yeah.
Like the shows that I did, I picked all the records for them all the time, and that's mad that they in every other radio station all around the world you would be given you'd be given a playlist and that's it. But
that's it.
They're like going, you seem to know what you're doing. Go nuts. And then sometimes you'd have fallouts with the producer about a certain song.
But there'd be a wee word in it or something. Maybe.
No, but that's good. But that's good. Like I mean, like you should be having like healthy debates over what a show is, because it makes it better. Do you know?
Yeah. You're always reviewing it, aren't you?
Yeah, you're always. Yeah, but you should always be reviewing to a certain level, like not to a certain level where you'll criticize yourself into the ground, but you should always be sort of like going, right, can I make it better, or what's going to freshen it up, or
and you're
or that,
like, for people out there, being, I suppose, in the bowel or the heartbeat of Radio 1, there'll be a lot of people around you obviously coming in and saying, this, that, and or look, let's just come in, or let's just come in. Had you an approach for it? Because what people need to know, you're a rural man from Omagh that started, and as you say, the short presentations, to now being out in front of loads of people, and I suppose it brings its own pressures. Yeah,
you learn a lot, like coming through, and I think like the first maybe year or two that you're there, you're saying yes to probably more things than you should be, and you're out working more than you should be, and you're like, I set up a record label all around the same time as this as well. And I burnt myself out to the point I was having panic attacks and having anxiety attacks, and my mental health was a really bad ebb. And that was like being in the middle of Radio 1, like probably about maybe 2-3 years in, because I'd completely ran myself into the ground.
You thought you could do more than was possible.
I felt like I had an opportunity, and if I didn't do it now, then I would never get to do it. But I was trying to do everything at the same time, and it was a really bad couple of years.
It was just a time of, and I suppose what people out there should know, and sometimes in the whole creative world you were in, that you could be out 24 hours a day. You could be, and if you're on the label and you're trying to run your show, and there's piles of people telling you, well, don't do this, and you have to be there for meetings and all these things, and you're running, because I know you ran out lots of bands. The Touts were one of the bands,
love that band.
And but the likes of that time then, so how did you sort of come out of that time, or was it something you just thought?
I can barely remember it. There's a couple of years there, and it's not from like alcohol abuse or anything like that. It's just everything was so busy that like you never really had like a minute to actually just take it in, because it was a case of working 4 jobs and then working all weekend, and like how did I not? And
your own club night too.
Club
was
night,
that time
club
as well?
Night and stuff as well.
Slacker and all
that was actually more difficult to run than all the rest of them put together.
Jeez,
I'm sure you well know, Paddy. Like doing a show to a few million people wasn't anywhere near as hard as running a flipping club night to 500. That was a nightmare.
I know, and so you're telling people out there, stick to being what you're good at, and don't try and do everything.
You can spread it out a wee bit, but like you need to like just remember to have time to do nothing.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do nothing,
and you done TV shows as well, and all that time,
getting tired thinking about it now. I couldn't do that now. Like I still do a lot of different things, and I do about 8 or 9 radio shows a week. And do wee bits and pieces in between.
That's a lot too. Like, and your podcast,
but I can manage it. Like I can manage it now. It's muscle memory for a lot of it, because like I've been doing it a lot. But at that stage, when you're just beginning, it's not muscle memory. And when you start doing
adrenaline at the start, adrenaline.
Aye.
I want to do as much as possible. I want to get involved as much as possible.
It's the right feeling, but done in the wrong way, if you know what I mean.
And at that time then, when you're saying about your label and being working in Radio 1, obviously pluggers would have been in, and different labels would have been sending stuff into you, and all that goes with that. Did that give you an opportunity, because I know we'll come to it after about your book, but did that give you an opportunity to see how the industry worked from, say, something arriving at your desk, how to be listened to, who would listen to it, where you try and place it or not place it, and the person that took that on maybe was me and at other acts. You know, you want to listen to this actor from Croydon or this act from Birmingham or Belfast or Derry or wherever it is. How does that all go for you and the whole setup?
I think when you go into the belly of the beast of radio, you start learning more about the music industry, just generally. But I had a decent interest in it because I'd played in a band for such a long time and had tried to get my band signed to labels, and we'd almost got signed to labels, and we'd had our ups and our downs, and we'd played big gigs.
The band is Glasgowbury Parade, for people to know that.
Yeah, still on Spotify. Give us that 0.00070.
You've been played 5,050,000 times and you made 12p last week. You're loaded. That's terrible, isn't it?
Exactly. Get the 10p mix up and stick the 2p in the slot machine down Bundoran. But I had a big interest in it anyway because I'd spent from about 14 till about 24 trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
And anybody who says they've figured out is full of crap. Like, cause it's
always
evolving.
It's always evolving.
It's always evolving, yeah.
And the wheel always seems to put an RV cog in, doesn't it? Well, to learn more. No, isn't that right? Like, it seems to be like if it was a wheel full of spokes, you would learn so many spokes, and then somebody would turn the wheel, and then that next half of the spokes is just a completely different machine.
That's it. Like, and that's just symptomatic of the age that we live in as well. Like, I mean, you could have bought a music industry book in 1970 and it'd be pretty much the same stuff that you would have needed to have known up until about 1997, because it was the same sort of media and it was the same sort of people that you were speaking about.
Butter churner just doing the same old.
Internet came and revolutionized it for the good, because it meant that democracy started to rule a little bit, where people who weren't signed could start to get a big fan base and start to sort of dictate and live on their own merits, on their own merits, rather than having to be shooed in by a record company executive or an A&R man. So like, I mean, when you work on Radio 1, you definitely start hanging about people from record labels, and you learn way more about it. And I think I learned probably more in the first couple of years there than I did at any point before that.
And do you think that that has changed now in Northern Ireland, that type of information for people to get access to, and the way the industry is moving at the minute? Phil, what do you think? Or is there still a need for, I suppose, do people still need to move, what I'm saying, to London to gain the expertise? No, I think... Or like, Brighton, where you used to live as well.
Yeah, I lived in Brighton. But like, you know, I have a couple of friends that are living in Dublin, and I'm like, it's more expensive to live in Dublin than it is in London. Just move back up a road to Belfast. It's a quarter of the price of the rent.
It's shocking down there, isn't it?
It is. But that's like, you know, God, that's, we're not going to sort that out in the podcast today.
No.
But I think, like...
Bring back the punt.
Bring back the punt. Get the stag back.
All them young people are, what's that? Is that
what's the punt? What did he say? He can't say that.
Did he say pun or punt? Well, that's you'll have to work out, you know.
But no, I don't think you do have to necessarily go away. And actually, sadly, what I can see is the most successful young Irish musicians at the moment, like Fontaine's DC, Kojak, April, the three acts that are doing really big things, signed to big labels, making big waves. We're all happy in Dublin, but I had to leave, and now they're in London. But I think that's not we're going to make it. I think that's we can't afford to live in Dublin thing. So I think that's different. But if you're in Belfast, like, it will be far cheaper for you to spend that 40 quid over and back on a flight once a fortnight than it would to pay £1,500 a month rent.
Yeah, and because you're paying that £1,500, you have to earn that £1,500, imagine. And if you're out there among thousands, possibly tens of thousands,
probably
of other musicians, it's hard a road to cut through. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And so, what do you think the state of independent music is, Phil? I
still think it's good for people to get away and live other places and stuff. Like, I'm not for any stretch of the imagination saying, you know, you should just ever to stay somewhere. Like, you should go and live somewhere for a year or two, and if you don't like it, come back. Like, it broadens your horizon in the long run. But like, in terms of the music industry, you can do it from wherever you can get Wi-Fi and some good sound. But like, and when it comes to like independence, it's hard, man. Like, I mean, my record label was independent to start off with, and then it went through Sony as a joint venture. and then I went back to being independent, and we took the money that Sony gave us, spent it all on music, made them back absolutely nothing, and got sent out.
You made the waiting round, didn't you?
It doesn't matter. We helped about 15 bands out, and they wouldn't have got their stuff out without it.
Yeah.
And whether it made Sony any money back, I couldn't give a damn, as long as they weren't coming after us for it. So we went independent again. And that's when the label started doing quite successfully, because when you've got nothing, you got to make it. Nothing has to stretch far.
And you made it stretch.
We made it stretch, and we signed a couple of artists that did all right.
Because you just didn't sign artists from here. Do you want to mention some of the artists that you signed at that time?
Who had we signed? We did a single with Reggie Snow. We did 2 EPs with Rat Boy. We did a band called In Heaven, who've now split up, but they were absolutely brilliant band. A guy called Rhodes, we did his early stuff. This girl called Wilds, who's probably our most successful artist in terms of like streams and things like that, and she's a wonderful singer-songwriter. And then the Rotten Apple Core of My Eye, the 3 Gimps from Touts up in Derry.
That's right.
I love that band.
They have an album getting ready to come out again, from what I hear.
Well, they've had one, and they were like, this isn't good enough, so they scratched it, and then they've recorded another one, and they've recorded it with Cahir O'Doherty up in Donegal, and it's brilliant.
Yeah, because Cahir was in here and he was talking briefly about and Wally. You know Wally. Yeah. Wally was talking briefly about it too. I don't know if he done a piece on one of the songs.
It's brilliant. Like it's really good. It's not even a punk rock record.
Well,
that's what shocked me.
Should we tell the world that? No, it's a punk record.
It's a punk record.
It's full of punky.
Say none.
And so in 2018, you started Slacker Podcast, and I thank you for coming on. For me, you're a far more experienced podcaster than myself, and a far more experienced presenter all round. But
you're doing a pretty good job of it here, Paddy.
Oh, thank you very much. Could you, what your podcast, Phil, you get a musician and you talk about, like we're doing here, about their life and their music and maybe their albums and classic albums, because you interview a lot of big names out there. So how did that start for you? Was it something you just thought, I think I'll do this? Or did you pick it up around? Did you listen to other podcasts? Or was it something you thought, I could do better than that?
I started it because Radio 1 at that point weren't giving me the opportunity to do the interviews with the people that I wanted to do them with. So I just decided then that if that wasn't going to be something, I didn't want to sit on my hands in like the peak of like my broadcasting point, at what I thought at the time anyway. And I was just like, well, I was going to do it myself then.
Yeah.
If I'm not going to get the opportunity here, I'll just do it myself. And I mean, that threw up problems in itself, but it ended up being okay. So it's fine.
I suppose it was Radio 1. Is that one of the places where, say, like you're up there with all the big presenters at that time? You were a face off it. Is that something then? Exterior work that you do outside, did it become, is that what you mean there with the podcast, that you couldn't put it out because they thought, oh look, you're in Radio 1, you shouldn't be? It was
before a lot of everybody else. It was basically before all the rest of the world started doing podcasts. It was just before the real like podcast push that happened, maybe about 6 months really after. So it was kind of fine.
But that left you in a leading position, because you have won awards as a music awards for your podcast.
I can't even remember which one. The Mammy Award. I think it's the second. My sister's podcast won last year, but I think I might have it next year. But no, the podcast was something I wanted to do because I wanted to do long form interviews, and I wasn't getting the scratch to do it where I was. And I asked, could I do it? And they said yes. So I went ahead and I did who were the first couple with? They were like with the Cribs and Manic Street Preachers and Little Sims, and there was tons. Like I've done about 70 of them now, and I thought like a good mechanic for the interview would be to play their first ever demo on the podcast, because it brings that band out of media training and it brings them back to the mental space of what it was like when they were just starting,
when they wanted
which is
to just play.
A more honest and more pure place to start a conversation.
Brilliant.
Than somebody who's just coming in the middle of like the
50 million singles.
Fifth interview of their 9th album. It's just nice to bring it back. And I think one of the sweetest moments that I had in that was I was doing one with Pete Doherty, and he actually, it's weird because like you see Pete Doherty as like a as quite a scatty sort of like person who like, you know, is all over the place, and you'd imagine like he probably loses his passport every other day. That sort
like
of vibe.
me with these here.
Yeah, you and your glasses.
And the phone.
But
I thought I lost you earlier on too, but then just round the building and you're sitting down.
He has all the hard drives for all the early like Libertine stuff from the beginning, and he brought in not one of their first demos, but a very early demo of Can't Stand Me Now, which ended up being one of their biggest songs.
Yeah.
And he sat there with his eyes closed, and I swear he was crying because he'd never actually listened to it back from the start, and the lyrics were different, and he's a very sensitive soul.
There you go.
And I had a real moment just watching him listen to it back, and I was like, this is a very pure moment.
I'm
and
sure
I was
it had
just
to
like,
too.
oh God, yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I'm fairly empathetic, so if somebody starts crying, I'll probably start going as well. I'm like a baby in a restaurant. Like,
don't start, I'll start with you now. Sorry, just turn off the cameras a minute there and turn off the mics in 5 minutes to me a fella of a good cry.
Exactly. People downstairs will be like going, they were singing Janis Joplin about 2 minutes ago, and now they're upstairs crying. What's going on?
To all the girls I loved before. We're giving it out there. So see, and you know, and then the likes of them interviews, you know, you're getting in touch with these people and all, because you're at a level now that you can contact them and they'll go, yep, and like you can just rhyme off X, Y, and Z, you know. But how do they feel then about returning to that first demo or that early moment?
Some of them are a little bit sheepish about it, and some of them won't.
Aloof, do you think some don't want anybody to hear that?
I think, yeah, I've definitely had that. I've had some acts that have given me stuff that's meant to be their first demo, and it's more their first demo as like, you know, flipping their first album is, because they I don't know, maybe they don't feel it's like polished enough, but the whole idea of it is that it's not meant
it's raw. It's raw.
meant to be raw. It's meant to sound like a dictaphone sellotape to the side of a shed, like and that's the whole like ethos of the podcast, really. And some people really lean into it, they'll give you it, and then some people don't, and then some people want to come on the podcast but they don't want to play the demo, and I've done that maybe once or twice, and I prefer not to, like, but
because it takes away from the heart of what you want,
but what it is. And I've slowed down with it a little bit, like over the last year or so, after leaving Radio 1, you know, like
But you were serious. No, isn't that right?
Yeah,
is that how you pronounce it?
Do you want to hear something, right?
I don't want to pronounce it like a country that's all, you know.
SiriusXM. It's SiriusXM.
Yeah.
So the SiriusXM is like they have about 35 million subscribers across US and Canada, and they're the satellite station. So the States is so big that they don't have a national broadcaster the same way that we would, because, you know, we're all in the same time zone. So, like, you know, it's pretty easy for us all to listen to the same thing at the same time. But like, America doesn't really have that, but Sirius is that. Like, it's a satellite station, it's commercial, and I do a drive time alternative music show on it. And guess what? When I was driving down today, I got a phone call from them. So the show's meant to go out at 9 p.m. and we're recording this at 7:30. And I recorded the show for today yesterday, so I did a pre-record, and I got a phone call from them, which I never get, because I always send it to them in the morning, and they were like, you haven't sent us your show. And I forgot to send them the show for Tuesday, and it's the first time I've ever done it, and I was too far down the road to drive back up to do it, so I was just like, well, there we go. I've got into shit for this today.
Oh no. But I hope I didn't make that happen.
No, my absent-mindedness that made it happen, so that's my fault. But listen, I've got a holiday next week. This is the sign.
Yeah.
This is the sign. Your boy needs to go and take 5 days off and
so
come back.
You go on a wee break.
You need a wee break. Yeah, you need a wee break.
So you're going to the beach or the mountains or the fresh air or what? Or are you going to just lie back in some sunny place and go, oh, look at me, I'm just lying back in your old sunburn. I can't see you doing that.
I'm gonna go surfing in Portugal.
That's deadly.
Yeah, I've never been surfing before, but sure, we'll see.
But I mean, sure, will you do any pre-training on it? You know, beforehand? You know?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. Straight in there.
Straight in there.
Well, send me a wee video. You know, you and Rodriguez and all. Ding 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 ding. Have you done that wee dance now? Stand up there.
I'll be going straight in on the 60-foot waves.
For anybody out there, we are taking the surfboarding, surfing in the USA. So we're going to get done for copyright all over the show tonight. We never normally do that.
It's grand. Because of you, cover versions.
It's all right. It's cover versions. It's bad cover versions too. We're trying to be a slightly bit sarcastic in the cover version. But so. That show online for you. How does that feel now? You know, because obviously you have total control there.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's good. Like, I mean, SiriusXM is the same place that Howard Stern does his show. He's the biggest broadcaster in the whole of the world, really.
There you go. Has it helped? Have you got
it's good?
traction?
Yeah. Like, I mean, like the boring stuff, like social media and stuff, they seem to be, and the reaction to it's been great.
That's good.
So I do it 5 days a week, and then I do Radio Ulster on Friday, and then I do my Spotify shows, which are my own shows, and the sort of the show that I do, Chill the Beats, which is like it's kind of like the chillest show that I did on Radio 1, but I've developed it into something that I think
they kept that show
better.
going. People should know that your concept was kept going.
I was a bit ripping at that.
I just want to put that in there. So what that means for people, if I'm talking too fast, is Phil come up with a concept and he was ripped off, right? How was he ripped off, Patrick or Paddy or Pat? I was thinking earlier on for yourself, you know, I have 3 bangs. You've got Philip, Phil and Philly. So I'm glad of somebody across me with a triple name.
Patrick and Paddy.
There you go. And then Philip, Philly and Phil. There you go. Yeah. So 3 passports each we have. One is Phil Rodriguez.
Yeah, you can buy the other 2.
Phil Taggart and Philly the Bull, right? So going back to what we were chatting there, just saying about audiences online and stuff, and it being massive. Is that something, like, yet again, going back to your podcast, you were ahead of the game with Radio 1 and wanting to do them, and now all of a sudden you're on the online platform that's huge. How does that sort of match compared to the other? Because you still get that organicness going to Radio Ulster and doing them shows. So and how did you go about that, Phil? It's
I don't know, like the Radio 1, it's a big base. It's the biggest youth station in Europe and like the biggest new music station and probably in the world, like in terms of how it treats new music. And you know, you're scared to leave it when you do, but actually the moment you do leave it, it felt like a little bit of a relief to me. I felt like I was ready to do new stuff. I'd spent a good 10, 11 years.
Yeah, you put in a lot. You put in a good long shift.
Yeah, I gave Radio 1 as much as I could, and I got a lot out of it as well. And I'm very proud.
I met a lot of friends.
Met a lot of friends, and yeah, massively proud of everything that went on. And
you achieved
I got
great
to be a part
things
of it.
there.
It was really great, and I was quite scared of, like, you know, if you've been in a relationship for a long time, or if you've been like working one place for a long time, you're scared about what's out there. And I mean, the first couple of months I was a little bit like, oh God, what am I doing now? And it all started to fall into place. And now I'm doing more radio than I was doing beforehand. And I feel content, and I feel a little bit more chilled. I mean, part of that is moving back to Ireland as well. Like I feel like, you know,
because you look content and chilled there. Even for those listening on Spotify, mark my words, and I'm not a wee white liar. Phil looks totally content, and I'm looking to be right, totally content. See, so it's all around totally content. And but so what's this kind of? No sense to someone like yourself that's always been creative asking about the future, but for young people out there, just I suppose, going back to them that maybe want to get an inroads into the creative industries as such. 2 things I would ask: how do they get into it? And just after that, what's your favourite mode? Is it TV, radio, or, you know, presenting? And what's
I would say, like, off the top of that, like, probably just radio and broadcasting is definitely my favourite out of all of them. And like the best way for you to get in any sort of like creative industry is by, first of all, showing up to wherever the creative industry is,
and whatever medium that's
and whatever medium that is, like whether it's I don't know, like engineering, whether it's sculpting, well, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, go and show up and learn, and if there's classes, go to the classes. If there's extras to be done, help them pack away the brushes, help them pack away the gear, and go and do all of the not glamorous stuff, because you need to learn, because when you do all the not glamorous stuff and you still enjoy it, that means that you'll enjoy it when it gets to all the glamorous stuff.
It gets a bit smoother.
Do you know what I mean?
Clean the toilet before you go in the toilet.
Like, I've seen a lot of people come in to radio and expect to be interviewing Noel Gallagher tomorrow, or people who've come to play gigs and they're wondering why they're not headlining after they've never put a song out.
I know.
And you're like, like, I know that there's a you know, young people today have a really bad stigma around them about wanting everything now, but the reason that's the case is because if you go in and you learn all that sort of stuff, you're better at it then. You're not ready for it now, because if you get thrown in too early, you're going to drown. So you need to
and I'm sure that's happened many individuals going to Radio 1 or any.
It's happened me trying to start. I've tried to start various different projects here and there. Like the projects we talked about today are only the ones that like went over. But there's plenty of projects that I started and hadn't the baldy what I was at, and I ended up having to pull the pin on, or was just like I have no idea what I'm doing. I had to give up.
I was once asked on radio, are you making this up as you go along? And my answer was, well, nobody says I'm doing it wrong, so maybe that's your answer there. Do you know what I mean? And it wasn't you asked it to me, it was one of your colleagues. And I think he didn't expect that answer, you know.
It's a pretty good answer. That's a good answer.
It's a dangerous answer. You're looking after loads of people. Now, Phil, you have a book out as well about the music industry. The name's Slacker's Guide to the Music Industry.
Slacker's Guide to the Music Industry. So, like, I mean, I don't know anything about the music industry. I know little bits and pieces, but I was in a sort of sweet spot where I was in London, and I was like, I knew a lot of bands and a lot of artists, from Wolf Alice to Slaves to Loyal Corner, Lil Sims to Run the Jewels to flipping Blossoms, George Ezra.
All bands that are flying.
Yeah,
Wolf Alice and Blossoms are flying now.
Yeah, absolutely flying. Run the Jewels, one of the biggest hip hop groups in the whole world. And I got all of them for 20 chapters, and I asked them various different things that you would never hear them asked in an interview, because it was all about the music industry, and it was all about DIY. It was all about how they got their first song played on the radio, how they signed their first publishing deal, like what they were thinking when they were doing their first like photo shoot. It goes into really great detail. But on top of the bands, I had the best record label people, and I had the best publishers, the best online PR people, and I gathered up about 75 people, I think, into the book. And it was at that time the best people talking about the stuff that
it was up to date news. It wasn't what we were talking about earlier on. It was Alfie's a promoter, 1978 promoter.
Yeah, no, it was all.
I touched the feet of Phil Lennett, you know. Did you? I did. You know, do you know what I mean by that? You know,
it was all all these people, and that was important. Like all these people at that were at the forefront of what they were doing, and they were young at what they were doing as well. So they had the foresight of what
eager.
Yeah, and I'd love to be donate a record books down to here, like
respect that.
Yeah.
Respect. I wasn't asking free for them, you know.
No,
what I mean?
I'd love to,
because I always ask people for things, you know. When
but I'd love to send a couple of books. I'd love to send a couple of books down for anybody that'll read it. Like, yeah.
No, they would, because I know it could great.
It'll save me getting them pulped.
There's only 1/12 of years, but or the 15th, or whatever you want. So, what's the plans now for yourself? Is it just more creativity and more movement, and getting on with new stuff? And do you think the creative world's I know that I'm hoping the venues come back and different things. For you DJing, it's important, I would imagine, that lots of places come back. And you've, like I should have said earlier on, you've DJed in Ibiza and Camden, different places. Like,
and I feel like that part of what I was doing, like, traveling all around, it was enjoyable at the time, and I still want to do a bit of DJing here and there and everywhere, but like I'll probably like not do it as heavy as I did it beforehand. But there's a couple of different things that I'm looking at the minute. Like towards the end of the year, like the live streaming stuff with Twitch and thing is something I'm going to get moving October, November time, because it's something I've been thinking about for about maybe a year, and I've been trying to figure out what the right thing is for it, and I've now figured out what it is. And that'll be based around my Chill the Beat show, which is available to listen to on Spotify now.
We do it in style, right? We do it in style around here, right? Because obviously there's no ads in any of the bottles. Well, you're adding away there. And see that ad, just if anybody's out there, that should be sponsoring Phil and Paddy's podcast. So tell the world then what it's going to be like, and how it's going to be and how it's going to feel, and then tell the world about Spotify and podcasts. Yes,
yeah. I mean, like I've got a couple ideas for a few things. The weirdest one of which will be on Radio 4 next year, and it's not music based. It's
is it like a talking thing?
No, it's a sketch show that I've written with one of my mates, and
Mickey. Right, what I should say there, right? I wanted to bring him up because I flashed through there, and as you say, like on my phone there or whatever. So Mickey McCullough and Nathan Reagan run a Mad Notions podcast.
Great podcast.
So so they've been going for a long time, and they've got loads of people, I think, listening in. And but what people should know is they're both musicians.
Yeah.
But another side of Mickey is which is in some rural people, and it's called mad buck idiot syndrome, right?
Very well said.
And what mad buck idiot syndrome is, Patrick? Tell the world. Well, mad buck idiot syndrome is, I suffer a bit from it. I think, Phil, you suffer a bit from it.
I've recovered. You and Mickey haven't.
My name's Phil. I recovered from mad buck syndrome. So I don't know what sounds a bit naughty there, mad buck syndrome, Jesus Christ. But Phil, you and Mickey are big pals, and you just love the crack, right? And Nathan and Mickey are wild crack, and I hope someday maybe we'd chat to them too. So I know you can't tell people what it's about, but I am aware that Mickey and Tony Wright, done the thing together, and I know that I was talking to Mickey up at the Stendhal Festival, and he was slightly, I don't know, a Stendhal, maybe imagine this, maybe it's a ghost of me. Mickey, have you got a double or what? I think it was you, and if it wasn't you, the guy
probably just some lad eating out of a bin.
The other guy was doing the double, and that's him. So can you tell the world a wee bit about it, or because it's just like
I mean, there's not that much to be said at the minute, because it's not we're writing it at the minute, but it's just we project. Me and Mick started in the middle of a pandemic, and we're working really hard, and hopefully something will come of it next year.
Brilliant.
But it's just, at the minute it's just
how does them, sorry, just for me,
out.
how does them radio type, them vocal ones work? Like, is it an hour long, or is it like, the one that's going forever? I think it's going since
the Archers.
I think it's going since Earth was formed.
Yeah, we're writing the sequel to the Archers. So Mickey's writing, and I just lie back and just like let him do it and take all the glory.
And so do you get do you take characters or what, or
we're trying to figure it out, Paddy. Like it's too early. It's too early in the production for us to even say what it is at the minute, because we don't really know. It's just us just working together on something for the first time in years and years and years, and enjoying ourselves.
But the world should know that you are best friends.
Aye.
And have been since
this is about 13. So it's good to be working together on something.
And
we'll probably kick the head of each other.
No, but
that's what best friends do.
So which one's going to be the bull? Bull McCullough or Bull Taggart? Who is it going to be? Radio 4, Bull Taggart and Bull McCullough.
Immovable force.
And throw in young Heifer Reagan there just to take them along for the ride.
You've heard it. You've heard the show.
So I tell you what, man, it's been the best crack talking to you. I could talk all night, but what I will say is it was great having you and taking the time out, because if people were listening there, you are one busy individual, and tell the world to listen out for the Radio 4. It's coming up soon, Mickey. And, but Mickey, I want us some theme music. So,
he'll want his own interview down here now. You'll have to get him down.
We'll get the writer down to the script. But Paul, it's been brilliant having you.
Thank you for
thanks
having me.
very much, and I hope that you enjoyed being down, and hopefully someday we'll chat again, and I might reverse chat to you someday.
I'll get you on mine.
And that's deadly. And so I'll go back to my first demo. Dun, 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 dun. We should finish this here with a country song, but we're not. We're going to finish it with a serpent song. Ding, 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 ding. So thank you very much for the Small But Massive podcast. Thank you very much for Phil. Thank you very much for Tierney. Thank you very much for Nathan, Kayleen and Stella. And thank you very much, everybody, for listening. And as I said, Phil's got his own Slacker podcast. Mickey McCullough and Nathan have their own Mad Notions podcast.
Yeah.
With a name like that, them boys might be a bit rowdy, do you think?
I think they might be. I think they might be.
So thank you very much for listening. Phil, give yourself a round of applause.
Small but massive for life.
Thank you very much, brother.